when I was born, doesn't matter who my parents were, where they lived. Doesn't matter. Because the person who was born at that meaningless time, in that meaningless place, is not the person who lives today. The birth of who I am, not who I was, that is what matters. So, when was I born? I was born when I killed my first man. That was the day the person I was died, and the person I am was born. Everything before that doesn't matter. I was 14, still a child, you could say. But where I was, there was no such thing. I was young, yeah, but in that world, it was impossible to truly be a child. There was no innocence, no naivety. I didn't play or laugh. I survived. Life on the streets wasn't easy, and being a kid just made it even harder. So I begged and I stole. That was the only way to survive. Eventually, I got noticed. For someone like me, that can either be the best thing in the world or the worst. To this day, I'm not sure which it was. The guy who noticed me worked for one of the big families in the area. He put me to work running errands. Eventually, he trusted me enough to go around collecting the local business's protection money. The more I was trusted, the more money I handled. It wasn't actually that much, but it was more than I'd ever seen in my life. And eventually, temptation got the better of me. I don't know why I did it. This guy had been good to me, put a roof over my head, food on the table. As far as I was concerned, I was living in luxury. But I couldn't help myself. I tried to disappear, but that's not an easy thing to do. He demanded the money back. It was all gone by then, and when I saw how mad he was, I knew I had to do something, or I was dead. I stayed and watched as he faded away. I'd never seen a man die before. It was fascinating. Police figured it was a simple mugging, and they never found a culprit. Not that they were looking that hard. Maybe it's because I was so young. Maybe there's something in my brain that just doesn't work, but I didn't care that I'd just taken a human life. They say the first one you kill is the hardest. Not for me. It was never hard. To me, taking a life was no different than taking a wallet. It was just something I did. But you have to understand, killing a man changes you. Care or not, the person you were before you did it dies right there alongside your victim. The man who walked out of that alley was not the boy that walked into it. That was the day I was born. I made a life for myself, of sorts. See, no one expects a kid to be dangerous, so I kept my ear to the ground, and whenever a hit went out on someone, I'd find a way to claim it. Sometimes I'd let them catch me picking their pocket, waited until they followed me into an alley. Sometimes it was as simple as dropping a brick on them from the rooftop. Either way, I always found a way to collect. When I turned up to collect on every bounty anyone put out, people got interested. They began to compete for my services. And one group in particular won out. They became my sponsors, you could say. They put me up and started to teach me. See, until then, I'd been effective, but I was sloppy. Only my youth kept me from being seen by the wrong eyes. So they took me in, taught me, trained me. By the time they were done, I was an expert at what I did. No one could do it better. My sponsors, they were good to me. They paid me well, put me up, sent me all around the world. So long as I kept killing for them, they gave me everything I wanted, until they asked me to do what even I couldn't. When I refused the job, my superiors were upset. We had a bit of a disagreement. I kept taking down bounties, but on my own now, freelance, and a higher class of mark. I was done slitting throats in dark alleys, chasing after petty thugs who skipped on their debts. Now I was hitting politicians, international weapons dealers, even the occasional spy. For most of a decade, I flew all over the world killing whoever needed killing the most. But there was always that one line I wouldn't cross. Until one day, I did. A big-name gunrunner wanted me to help him deal with his competition. It was a simple job. I didn't think there would be any trouble. So I didn't pay enough attention, and I was interrupted. His kid, boy, walked in just as I pulled the trigger. I saw him the second the bullet left the barrel. Too late to stop. I don't like to do my work around kids. Don't like them to have to see that sort of thing. But I would have been able to get out of there, except I was one roof over, close enough to be seen. I had to do it. I couldn't let anyone see me. Until that moment, it had never been hard to pull the trigger. But this time, bending my finger felt like bending a steel rod. But I did it. Only when you hesitate, it screws up your aim. The belly is the last place a man like me wants to put a bullet. It takes too long, makes too big a mess. And the look on that kid's face, he didn't look scared. He didn't look hurt. He just looked angry. That little boy looked at me like he would tear me apart given the chance. Even after he died, his eyes drove hate into me like a drill. That little boy was the last person I killed. I think seeing that kid, I think it brought back a bit of the memory of the boy I used to be, just for a second. And I missed him. I was never innocent, but I used to be human. And at that moment, I wished I could be again. The feds came for me the next day, leaving a gun at a crime scene. Of course you're going to get caught. I think I left it there on purpose. When they came, I didn't resist. I answered all their questions, and I confessed to my crimes. I don't regret the life I've led. I don't wish that I could take it all back. I led my life the way I chose to live it. But when I killed that little boy, I knew I was done. I knew I'd lived long enough. I don't know if anyone will care when I'm gone, what I had to say for myself. I don't even know if these words will ever be heard, but I just wanted to tell my story. No defense, no excuses, just the way things were from my perspective. When I was born, doesn't matter who my parents were, where they lived, doesn't matter. What matters is who I am and what I did. But sitting here now, in the last hour of my life, I wish I could see my mother and father again. Tell them that I'll be alright, that I accept what I've done, and I must pay the price. I wish I could see that little boy one more time and tell him, I'm sorry.